Yeah, unless you need me to help guide with the agenda or anything like that, let me know.
Stephanie, did you say Holly?
Yes.
I don't think I'm the co-chair anymore.
I don't think, yeah, we haven't changed it as far as I know, but that's what we're doing today. That's
Okay.
the goal of today's thing. So don't worry.
Okay.
It's just
Very
a
good.
short thing. Hopefully it's just until Peter gets here. It looks like we might have lost Jeff. He might be in and out. All right. But so pretty much if you need some guidance, just go through the
meeting to order at 5:35.
All right, and I'll just call everyone's name to make sure that they are present in no particular order. Holly Parker, Stephanie Willett, plus Lucy.
Present.
Lisa Young.
Here.
And Jeff Nemeth. I see you. All right, well, welcome. I know it's a bit snowy out there, so probably a little better that we're virtual and people aren't trying to travel and traverse the roads right now. All right. So the first thing on the agenda that we have is just to approve the agenda. I don't know if there's any additional things people wanted to add or take a look at it. You should have gotten it in your email. It's also available on Legistar if you search for Public Market Advisory.
So did you have some things you wanted to add to the agenda?
Yeah, I just wanted to revisit the email conversation that I started about a possible annual report. So, and I was just talking about the feasibility of doing that and things like that. So,
sure.
I did have one question that came up just like super recently, but it's come up a couple times about internet access at the market. And I don't know if you want to, just a question of if it's possible to get wireless, to all the stalls, because it's really only in the office area. But I don't really remember what it was when I was manager. I know it was like kind of talked about, but if you had any more light to shed on it, either now or next meeting, I'm just curious what that said.
Yeah, we can tack that on the facility piece.
Cool.
I'll address that when we get to that point for sure. Cool. Looks like Jeff is just going to be floating in and out. He keeps disappearing, but we'll be patient with that. Okay, great. So just add those two additions to the agenda.
I think we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Agenda's approved.
All right. So that means next is the first public commentary. It is the opportunity for any people that are listening in or able to call in and share anything with us. Let me check to see if we have any attendees. This is the first of the two public comments. This one is specifically about current agenda items. I know there's a little bit of a lag. We'll maybe wait 2 minutes, or not necessarily that long, but a little bit of time. I'm not currently seeing anyone attending the meeting other than CTN. Okay. So I do not think there are any public comments this first go round.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So then the next thing is to approve the minutes from the past meeting. Anybody have any amendments or edits to the minutes?
Sorry, did they come in an email?
If they weren't attached on that direct email, they are always available on the Legistar site. Let me see if there's a way that I could make it visible for people, so we could just go over that.
Why don't we can hold off on that, and maybe if we have to, we can approve 2 rounds of minutes next time. You want to do that, Stephanie?
It's up to you all, really. I could show them to you, or we could just hold off as well. Your choice.
I'm fine with holding off if we want to do that.
Yeah, either way.
Okay. Let's hold off. That way folks can actually read them if they haven't already. And so we'll just have 2 sets of minutes to review and approve next time.
All right. Okay.
And Stephanie, when you send out the agenda, if you could just throw them onto the email, it's just one less website that I have to remember how to get onto.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right.
So now we go to regular business, and we have our officer election. Do we want to wait until Peter's back?
That's a good point, because I know he did email me earlier in the week, so I think he anticipated on being here, so I'm not sure what's holding him up. But if you want to, we could table that either till later in the meeting or to next meeting.
Why don't we do that? Yeah, I'd hate to do it without our current fearless leader, and who knows, he may be our future fearless leader. So let's at least table it for this meeting, and if he joins later in this meeting, great. If not, we'll wait until next time.
Great. And I know, I'm not sure if you saw the email I sent around before, but there was a secret ballot. Obviously, we're on Zoom. So the way we're going to handle it is you can just email me your choice after we have the conversation, either later in this meeting or next meeting.
Any other questions or comments about officer elections? Okay, seeing none. So do you want to do the market updates, Stephanie?
Sure. So the first piece I had was about staff and vendors. I mean, it's just pretty general, but staff has been doing well. Something that's slightly different in years past is just based on the schedule of the hiring. The assistant manager is still currently working. His time off is going to be in the fall, so it's slightly different. And that's just basically how it had to work when we lost the other assistant manager and hired the new one on. So there's been 2 of us, and that's been well. I mean, obviously, it's been a very cold market since the year started, so we haven't really needed that additional staffing, but it's been nice to have that additional person there right now. The other thing too is we've had a regular volunteer that's been coming for an hour or 2 every other Saturday, and she's been helping with all sorts of stuff around the office. Gina Lynn is her name, and that's been great, and she's continuing as far as I know. In terms of vendors, we are at the point this year where we're receiving applicants for returning vendors. We're processing those. March 1st is a deadline on that. And once that deadline has come and gone, we will be sending confirmations out to all vendors. And, if people need additional licensing or things that they might have omitted from their application, we'll be doing that at that point. Something that's really exciting this year is the notary requirement for returning vendors has been removed. I know that was sort of a point of contention for some folks in the past, and doesn't really necessarily make sense for people that are returning unless there's a transfer of seniority or some major change in ownership or operation of the farm. But of course, we are keeping that for new vendors because that helps us maintain our producer-only status and track that. With that said, we assume or anticipate most folks are coming back I don't really think we have any retirements. I know the last couple of years we had a bunch, but right now I think we're probably going to be similar to the roster we had, last year. And with that said, we are opening new applicants again. That was something we had put on pause just because of COVID distancing needs, and so that we could get a better sense of, the stall move up, making sure that people were able to get their seniority placement in the fall. But now we have reopened it. We have brought on already 3 new vendors, 2 of which have gone through their orientation already. They include Vestergaard Farms, which is a meat producer. We're excited to bring on them. There's also a new hard cider and mead person. And this one's very unique in that they are actually attached to an orchard. So they are an apple orchard that focuses on hard cider. In particular, they're the 3rd generation operating their farm, and this generation is transitioning it into having that small winemaker's license. So that's their focus. We're really excited that they are a farm-based operation because that's somewhat unique in that world. And then the other one I just spoke with, we are getting a new bean to bar chocolate company coming as well. And there's a few other ones in the pike, but those are the ones that we have confirmed and will be joining us starting either later this month or next month. So that's where we're at with the vendors, and we're very excited to finally be able to bring new people on. With that said, there's a few categories of vendors that we're not really able to add any onto because we have far too many, and that's the case with baked goods. We're still pausing on that unless it's fresh bread specifically. But baked goods involving sugar, we're pretty much pausing on right now. And we have a pretty long waiting list for honey producers. Other than that, categories are open and we are bringing new folks on.
I'm excited that we're getting new vendors. That's yes. Exciting, especially because some of the ones you mentioned are really unique and we don't have there yet.
Yes.
I was wondering, in terms of application deadlines after March 1st, is there going to be some sort of grace period? Are you thinking about, or I'm just thinking in terms of the seniority and in terms of when we're assigning the stalls on a daily basis for the daily vendors, will those that don't turn their applications in be going to the bottom of the list if they do still want to come but are late, or are you thinking about because of COVID and stuff?
With COVID, I think we're still doing it on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part, if it's someone that has been completely MIA all last year, maybe they came one time, have not been in communication with us, we're not giving them a grace period. But if it's someone who, is a couple days late or is not sure yet and we still want to work with, we're definitely going to be flexible for them. So we're doing it on the case-by-case. But if it's someone that is, completely MIA, we've heard nothing, there's not much we can do in those situations. But yeah, we're definitely being flexible, and we're still having that extra buffer due to the pandemic to be as inclusive as possible. So yes. But yay, new vendors. And with that said, we are also in the process of, I was going to say the events part, but I guess I can wait till the item down the agenda in a moment. We'll get to that part. But yes, we're moving forward, bringing folks back, new people in addition. So we're looking forward to at least turning that back to sort of normal. So little by little. And that's all that I had for that piece. We are ready to move on to the next portion. That was what I had for staff and vendors. The next one is the facility. We can start with your questions, Stephanie, if you wanted to. I know there's been a couple people that have reached out and asked about what's going on with the wireless. Sometimes it's not stable. Sometimes it depends on what, where you are in the market, if it's working. If it's a windy day, there's a lot of factors. I have reached out to the city IT department and I have asked them, what are some options? Is there a way that we can do a signal boost is there a way that we can have an amplifier on some other side of the market? And we are currently waiting to hear back from them, but that is definitely something I've heard from vendors, and I have reached out to the city to find out more information, because I wasn't even sure, who hosted it at first, like if it was a combined thing with Carytown or anything. So I did find that out, and yes, IT is investigating what the options are, because I know many people have asked. Other things about the facility, I think I did mention this in my email update a couple of weeks ago or last week. I did have a meeting with the landscape architects, and we did a full sort of virtual walkthrough, right, on Zoom, but we did have the map and we were talking about it. And we went over everything, things that had been older projects, things that have been tabled, things that are more short-term or new, as part of the planning process for the space moving forward. With that said, I also had a meeting in the late fall with Park Operations, and we talked about a lot of maintenance projects for the market. One of them involves power washing as well as repainting the roof, because I'm sure of those of you that have looked at it anytime recently, there's a lot of, chipping paint, there's rust, structural issues they want to make sure don't happen due to that. So that is something that hopefully will be happening this spring. It's definitely on the radar. With that said, there's some pretty bad wood rot as well on the back doors to the market office building. They are in the process of fabricating us new doors for that. And partly that's just because of the slope of the market office building. When it rains, the water goes straight through the building and pools under those doors. And that's why the wood rot has happened there. So that's another thing that they are currently working on. Other things on their radar are, certain parts of either the stall area as well as parts of the sidewalk within the market and near the parking lot that are crumbling. That is something that they will be addressing too once the weather gets a little bit warmer. So pretty much all of those facility things, they are in the process of improving and dealing with that portion. In terms of winterization, because I'll just fold this into facility, because the pandemic has been dragging on, because of certain changes and people going on maternity and paternity leave in the landscape architecture office, it is difficult for them to have had a proposal drawn up yet, plus all the changes in pricing due to the pandemic and access issues for that. And then, of course, the fire code problems that would arise with the roll down sides. And the other thing too about that, I'm not sure if this was mentioned in the last presentation, but Hillary reminded me of, if they were to have roll down sides, part of the fire code would mean that it would have to be solar heat, which is incredibly costly and might not be that helpful. So that's sort of still where we're at. And Hillary's in the process of investigating, what the prices have changed, or what prices have changed, what materials might be harder to come by, and reinvestigating sort of those projects. But at this point, it seems like the roll down sides are very logistically difficult and don't make much sense. And another alternative for that would be potentially, having heaters in the roof of the market pavilion. And then using that, so then that way people could still have residual heaters if they needed to, and still wouldn't really impact people's current setups, but then it would make the market slightly warmer. But, so that's sort of where we are at and what I've heard most recently from Hillary, the landscape architect. But again, she's in the process of sort of finding out the answers to these questions and coming up with a concrete proposal, because I think, we really need to have something specific to approach the vendors with, because again, obviously everyone's in favor of something to make the market warmer. It's just a question of, what that looks like. And I should also say too, the money that was set aside for it is still set aside for it. That has gone nowhere. It's just that, the cost of it has potentially multiplied by a lot. And, once she has a specific proposal for us, we'll know more about that, to answer the question on that piece. I don't know if anyone had any comments, questions on that particular part.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, thanks. first comment, going back to just general facility maintenance and stuff. Did you remember, some vendors' stalls flooding frequently when there's rain, like Shetler's and near that corner office? And I was wondering, if maybe if they are looking at fixing some of those things, maybe is there a way to look at diverting some of that drainage, or the angle of, so I don't know what the solution would be, but I remember that being just kind of a big problem. Customers don't want to walk in front of some of those stalls because there's too much water. So it's I feel like it's a big issue. So if maybe that could be something that they think about as well while they're doing some of these maintenance projects, I don't know, something to look into would be great. Yeah, and then just the other comment on the winterization, it's good to hear that they're looking into putting together another proposal. I'm just wondering if we know that the numbers that Hillary is looking into are those. We'd always talked about it as a kind of a two-piece project. We need heat and we need, these roll-down sides. They don't necessarily happen, or we need some sort of sides. They don't necessarily need to happen at the same time, but if one could happen, that would make it warmer. That would be great. So even the heating element is something I think we've always wanted, as well, just as important or more important than the roll-up side. So I think that, especially knowing the fire code now, really concentrating on finding out what that would look like would be smart. Not that I want to give up on the roll-up sides, of course, but just for now, it sounds like that piece of it is becoming more important.
Yeah, and it seems like too, from what I've heard from her, that's the piece that's the most feasible. Also, I mean, the roll down sides, it would be really great to block the wind, but they bring a lot of other issues and make the project much, much, much more expensive because we would have to do alternative energy source than otherwise. So there's that part that I was not aware of personally until I just spoke with them recently. But that's a good point. In terms of the drainage situation, downspouts and stuff, that is definitely something that was part of the conversation and part of the sort of the roof maintenance thing. And I think also part of it is sometimes, the drain pipes just dislodge themselves or get bumped by a vehicle. So yes, that is most certainly something that we also discussed and they're going to be looking at. And I forgot to mention that they are also going to be fabricating new signs for inside of the market. Because there's cracking on them, they're kind of dingy. So they are in the process too of figuring out, what those should look like, what type of updates there should be. And that hopefully will happen sometime this spring, summer. Oh yeah, go ahead.
If they were to do a heating element, not thinking about the roll-up side, sure. Is Hillary looking more into not powering it by solar? Is the thought that it would be cheaper to do the gas, and that's sort of the direction they're looking? Yes. I know that okay, that makes sense. I know that there were some projects, some other facilities were working on getting more solar installed, and there was some grants and stuff and funding there. Is that something that we would still be able to possibly qualify for as well?
Yes, we're going to be getting another round of solar. It's just a question of when. The other potential question mark there is that there might be a very large, tall building going in across from the market, and not sure how that would impact how the sun would shine on the roof. But that is something that the sustainability office is currently figuring out separately from this other project. So yes, both things are going to happen. And again, that was the issue is, I think a lot what Hillary was saying was with the roll down sides, to heat it with solar would be very costly. And we would need a lot of energy. And again, not sure how hot it could even get or for how long due to that. But she's investigating all of these, and hopefully we'll have a full report for everybody. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to ask if you could keep us updated on the schedule for when they will have that together, because it would be delightful to have them come to the meeting again, because that was really helpful last year when they came to talk about the ideas and the limitations and things like that. And I just keep thinking about solar and the Ann Arbor's net zero initiatives, and I'm struggling with, if we're going to put in heat. I understand some of the limitations, but it seems like we need some creativity on how to not put gas heat in an open space where the heat's going to dissipate so much. So anyways, just to throw that complicated thing into the loop.
Sure, and she's investigating all of the options. That was just something that, I didn't even realize that there had been that previous requirement, that if it was going to be rolled outside, it would have had to be solar power, and then the potential impacts for that. So she's investigating all options. Her counterpart, Adam, just went on paternity leave this week. So it might not be the fastest timeline because now she's taking on all the projects herself for the next 3 months. But yes, I will keep you posted as much as I know.
So, one more question, Stephanie. Is she putting together a proposal? You said she's exploring all the options. So yes. Is she going to explore all the options and put together like her best assessment as a proposal? Is she's still looking at roll down sides as an option, or is that, do you get the sense that's completely off the table now?
It seems to me that that's highly unlikely from conversations I had with her, but she is still looking at all of the options so that we can assess that ourselves as a body. And again, I only have as complete of information as I've been given. So I will update you as far as I know, but yes, she's looking at everything, specifically how did the pricing change things? How has access to goods and materials and pricing of all that, how has that changed? So she's going to be doing a full assessment and then presenting to us, or to me first, and then to you all her findings.
Excellent, thank you. It's definitely been a moving target, I'm sure, for them. So just echoing Lisa, that we'll be eager to have them come talk to us, because it is super helpful to have that detailed conversation. So thank you.
Sure.
I see that Peter has joined us.
He has joined us.
Sorry, I'm late. I had
okay. I figured it was
issues.
Weather related. The roads are.
It's sad, even on Zoom. How can it be transport issues? But it's like
it's okay. It happens. Happens. Well, let's just finish this part about facility, and then maybe we can see if we want to switch over to that voting conversation. Okay, so where I was at, I just had one more thing about facility. We are now in compliance with the new ordinance to offer free feminine products at all city facilities. We had those installed last week in both of our restrooms inside of the market office. So we are now in compliance with that exciting ordinance. So, yay. That's all that I had for facility as of this moment. So then the question becomes, do we want to just finish this sort of general market report and then move on to the other stuff, or how do you all want to handle it?
Yeah, why don't we do that, Stephanie?
Okay.
And then
great.
I'll hand facilitation, such as it is, back over to Peter. If you're okay with that, Peter.
Sounds good.
We were at 2C for events because we tabled the election until you could be present. So market events, we are in the process of planning on what those events will be. Not really sure yet what exactly we want to do, if we want to do a full schedule of food truck rallies, if we want to do something else. The only thing that's pretty clear that we should be doing again for sure right now is Flower Day, but we hope to have a full schedule of events soon. Hopefully by next month, we will have that. And I was just contacted today by the county health department person to make sure that once we have our food truck rallies or other special events, we're all set with giving them the list of all the food trucks and food cart vendors that need to be accounted for. So that's back to normal. That was the first time I think we'd even heard from them since the pandemic closure. So one more thing getting close to normal. But that's really all that I have for events right now. And I think, next meeting we'll have more information about that. The other one is COVID related. The city just did an update about their policies. It's coming down the pike. I have not had the opportunity to look at it yet. I just received it earlier today. But as far as I know for right now, masks are still required indoors. We did remove the portable toilets recently because, again, they've been frozen closed. It has not really been helpful with a cold winter such as this. And our hope is to be able to open the restrooms area back up to the public when the weather gets a little bit warmer. With that said, we're not reopening the office area yet, and we're still going to be sort of playing that by ear. We're still going to be working out of the window for now, but we will hopefully be opening up the restrooms to the public, when it gets a little bit warmer outside. Other than that, we probably will still have to police masks inside of that indoor space, which, is a whole nother can of worms, but we will be doing that. But other than that, things are doing better. I will say as well, we did do a big mask giveaway at Market on Saturday. We gave out 1,000 masks, KN95 masks, in less than 3 hours. So we were just very surprised by the interest, and felt kind of bad that we had to turn some people away. But we were working with the county on that. They're doing a large distribution program right now at many sites all over the place. So that was really great. So we were able to help as many people out as we could. But yes, hopefully things are on the upswing in terms of returning to normalcy, not the upswing of cases, and we can move forward on that. So, but that's all that I have for the general date.
Follow-up question. Thank you for that update, and nice work on the mask distribution. Can you help me understand why the public restroom is still closed? You said when it warms up. Is it temperature related? I didn't realize that they close in the winter.
They're not. They're closed because of COVID.
Oh, okay.
We have not reopened that. It's just vendors and staff right now, and it's a safety issue. And because all City of Ann Arbor facilities still require masks indoors, and we just haven't had the staffing or desire really to have to police masks to the general public, given my experiences before, we'll say. But now that the case rate is going down slightly, we feel a little more comfortable about that. But again, we had planned on doing it earlier, and then there was the Omicron surge. So we did not continue with that plan. But now that things are getting a little better, we're hoping that will be changed soon. Right now, we're just directing people to the Carytown shops.
Well,
again, we just lost the public toilets like literally this past week.
Understood. Sounds like they weren't working really super well anyway. Just for my part, I don't know if that other commissioners feel this way, but I just would like to really encourage you to open the public restrooms up. I know you can't police the masks, and I think that that's something that we have to somewhat let go of, is trying to police every indoor space. And I think with signs posted and the requirement up, any space I go into may or may not be policed, but understanding that the requirement is there with the signs, I think is probably as good as any public space can do. And I do feel like having public restrooms available is really important. So I just, for what it's worth, I know we've talked about this before, and so I would really like to strongly encourage you to consider opening those sooner rather than later.
And I would second too Holly's comments with that too, because it is true. You know, there are other spaces inside the Carytown space which have the same requirements, but at the same time, it is, I don't know, it is a convenience that's there for, that can be used for other folks. And I hear what you say about the policing issue, but at the same time, I do think that it's a sign probably would be sufficient for that policing at this stage in particular for that. But so I think it is something of it would be, I would encourage trying to get to that point, however we can. So.
Sure, and it's not just about the policing. It's number one is about safety of staff and vendors, because again, you know, if we were to become sick, we don't have auxiliary staff, right? A lot of people are short staffed, like we have no one else. So keep that in mind. It's not just about the policing issue. And again, you know, I personally was assaulted by someone that did not pay attention or listen to anything that I nicely said to them. So I appreciate the feedback. And again, you know, we would be a little bit more quick to do it if there weren't another option so close by in Carytown. But, you know, just keep in mind that, you know, staff and vendor safety is the most important thing to me, period. So we are investigating options.
Stephanie, will you feel more comfortable when the weather's warmer and you can open up the doors, since the restrooms are across from the office? And maybe that's one of the things that can be helpful, is since the restrooms aren't attached to the office, so it can keep some physical separation from those people who are going into the restrooms. And then my second question is, in terms of how you have felt about the workflow during COVID, it seems like that Windows worked really well. Would that be something that you would think of having even after COVID? Because it seemed to help the sort of flow of being able to do the tokens and ask people's questions. They could just walk up. So just thinking about you all's workflow, and also then that increases less exposure to all of you from people coming into the office.
Yeah, we like that. You know, it's also helpful for us to have a little bit more of a workspace that's not, you know, taken up by POS systems right on the desk in front of us. So that's something that, you know, we still haven't made a definitive decision, but we do enjoy that setup. Yes.
I guess I'm curious too, actually, with that window. I find it really convenient just because it seems it's a lot more public facing than the current office is kind of hidden in that way. And so that is a plus. The one thing I've wondered, which I don't know if you've received any feedback about, is just accessibility. Is there a step up to get there? And as I think there was, but I don't know. And since I'm mobile, it doesn't affect me, but I just wonder about if that affects others too.
Yeah, we had a step actually fabricated for us to make it more accessible. And there is also an area where we had them put sort of like a quick, not exactly a full ramp, but to make it easier for motorized and for wheels to get up onto that sidewalk. So yes, that is something that Parks did for us a while ago.
And have you had any feedback with that, or just just your experience with that? And is that just curiosity?
I mean, there's some folks in wheelchairs that will actually just go right outside and help them directly if they can't get up. So it has not been an issue.
So you found ways to accommodate, you're saying that way?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great.
And again, you know, it will be slightly different once we open the breezeway, because then people can enter in that direction and they could go around the sidewalk a little easier from just that sort of corner. You would have to turn really sharply. But once that is back open, that will be easier too. Great. So that's all that I had for the update section. So I didn't know if you wanted to just continue with everything, or if we wanted to jump back to the election of officers, or where you all were feeling the direction.
How about let's jump back to officers just to get that knocked out of the way.
Right. All right. So I've never done it in the past, but again, I was told that it's a secret ballot thing. So if you wanted to have a conversation about it, and then everyone just email me their votes, we can do that if that works for people.
Yeah, so I guess the question with it too is that, so we have to figure out new officers. We need chair and vice chair. And so I am chair, and so my session is ending. So I've done that. So now we need to seek someone new who will take the gavel, my pen, the powerful pen. And so, and then we'll need someone also for vice chair. Is there anyone who has some interest in taking on the chair? I see many excellent candidates on the screen.
I had a quick question first. Do you remember, or do you know what the term limits are? Are people allowed to serve consecutively in a row, or does it have to be a different person?
You mean in terms of the officer positions? I don't think that there is any, but I could double check. So I was looking at this the other day. But
that brings up an interesting question too about just the bylaws as to how we operate. That I realized talking to someone else on a different committee, and they're like, "Oh, we review our bylaws annually." It's like, we should, maybe we should, because I don't know if I've ever seen our bylaws. So I think that's something that most recent I saw in our files is from 2013. So okay, that's why then, because we didn't. I've not seen them then, in truth.
Yeah.
So that's also something we should put on an agenda, I think, for review, having a group review of our bylaws and also updating them as needed. I think that seems an excellent agenda item as one of my last acts. So.
All right, we'll have that added. I'm going to make a note of that. Okay. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that there is something like that, but I'll just quickly talk amongst yourselves while I quickly review this.
And I think historically how we've done it is we have kind of rotated through, at least for not consecutive ones. I don't know that, at least in my experience on this committee, that we've ever had anyone be it twice.
Yeah, I just found it. It says no member shall serve more than 3 consecutive terms in the same office. So we're good.
So meaning that we. So
how would you can be any role?
Yes, anyone. The floor is open for everyone.
I'll go first. So personally, I'm not really interested in being chair. We are going to be having a busy summer, actually expecting another one, another kiddo this summer. So I don't really want to, in case I have to miss a meeting or two, commit to a chair role, but I guess I would be willing to be vice chair, but not super attached to it in case anyone else wants that as well. Those are my thoughts.
That sounds great. Let's go put you on the list for that. Lisa, Holly, or Jeff? Well, Holly, you're right now the vice chair, yes?
Yeah, which I conveniently forgot for like 5 minutes tonight. I was like, oh, right, I'm vice chair. I can attest to the fact that it's a pretty low touch position. You don't even have to really remember that you're in that role, but it's probably recommended to try to keep track of that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's time for someone else. I'm happy to give someone else that opportunity.
Would you have any interest in running for chair after your taste of power?
No, thank you. This is as close to the throne as I'm comfortable coming. Thank you.
Lisa, Jeff, how do you guys feel?
I am not good at running meetings, but I can learn. I feel like I haven't done my term, so I'm okay. But just know I'm not very good at following rules for meetings.
I'm definitely not good at all at running that stuff. So I think that helps narrow it down.
Peter, how do you feel?
I'm fine with, it's been good to be, although it's been a challenge being chair during COVID. It's not been it's an unusual time. Hopefully in this next period we'll have a little bit more return to normalcy eventually. And that will, I think, help. But I feel like I don't necessarily want to do a second term right away. I think that if eventually things need to come back, that's fine. Or I'm always here for people to lean on. But I'm happy to hand off the baton to someone else. So. The power hasn't gone to my head.
I nominate Lisa for chair and Stephanie for vice chair.
Second.
All right. Send me your vote to my email, and hopefully that all goes through in a timely fashion. But we only have one candidate for each, so I'm not even sure why we're even doing a secret ballot, but okay.
Okay. So we'll send in our emails for this.
Yeah. All right. Maybe speaking of bylaw update, perhaps this is something to update. Show of hands would be a lot easier.
Well, when we're in person, it's easy too, because we just write them on little scraps of
true.
paper and then hand it out. So that's
It's true.
We have our own secret ballot system, but that's a little not too bad. But yeah.
Great.
So I've sent you mine, and other people, if you have access to send them now, you can. If not, then send them later. But it does seem good to have at least some little snippet of some documentation of something that says that democracy is at work. This is
yes. So I did receive your vote, Peter, as well as yours, Holly. Thank you. If people need more time, let me know. Because we could also go on to the next item, and then once we have everyone's votes, I could just announce it, if that would be.
We'll save the surprise to the end.
Okay. All right. Really?
Can send it, but I
people are
gotta
on
log
pins and needles here. So
What do you say, Jeff?
I said I can send it, but I can't do it while I'm on the Zoom call. I'm not savvy enough to do all that at the same time.
that's all right.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right.
right,
So shall we move?
Should we move on? Yes. Okay, so we'll go to item 3, the sign-in process rule change continued.
Yes. So this one's just really quick because we have not gotten everyone's application yet. And we did send out a survey with everyone's application. The date on that is March 1st. Alex, who could not be here tonight because unfortunately his dog is ill, he is compiling that. He says we've got about 50% of the responses so far. So we hope to have a full report next month about what everyone said about that. And then we can resume our editing process.
So is there actually a survey out, or is it just that you're doing the signups right now?
Well, we're doing the sign-up process like we've been doing it, but we did send out a survey with everyone's applications for returning vendors.
Got it. So they're physically filling out
it all as a packet. Yeah.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
We figured it would be easier. People are looking at it anyway. You know, it would increase our respondent rate like that. And again, one less piece of mail to be separate. But that's all that I had on that for right now. Just a quick little update about that. And I did receive the 2 tracks vote. Thank you. And I did receive Lisa's vote. All right. Okay. So are we ready to move on to the other item?
Sure. Yep. So item 4, CBD at the market policy update.
Cool. And this is circling back to something that I know you all were talking about sort of right before the closure. And I think there have been a few updates in terms of just state policy. So this is something that I would like to have like a completed policy for this year. The one change that I was thinking about doing is actually allowing the flower aspect. Part of that is because the state has clarified exactly what licensing looks like to be able to have that. Plus, I think that's a way for us to be really in line with our mission and actually support growers. But that was the only sort of change that I anticipated having to when I would write it. And I know before when you had conversations, at least from what I read, it seemed like a lot of it was based on like waiting to hear back from what the state had said and all that good stuff. Because it is totally legal to sell flower at farmers markets according to state of Michigan policy.
Yeah, and I think the other big piece was, opening it up to current vendors first, and then seeing what that demand was, and then opening it up to new vendors who wanted to apply. So I think that would be the next part also to decide is when you're ready to accept new applications for CBD products.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I just don't necessarily anticipate that many current vendors having an interest just because the licensing process is so involved. But no, I completely agree with you because pretty much what has to happen if you want to make salves and balms, right? So say you're either the grower, you have to have a hemp grower's license through the state, and you also have to have a processor's license that's specific to hemp products. So one of the ways in which it's actually probably better for vendors to make it so that you can sell flower too, you don't have to do that additional super costly license that would be for processing. So that's one piece of it. The other thing about it, I know you had talked about too, or asked about was, whether or not it was just grower only, right? It had to be the grower that was making the additional balms. I don't know if we necessarily have to have licensing like that because again, like many of our people that are making products aren't the growers of those products, like the majority of our food vendors, prepared food, for example. So those are some suggestions that I had thought about. But the one thing I think we really, really should do is allow flower to be sold because I don't think there's any reason why we are more restrictive than what state policy allows for. That seems like it doesn't help growers. It seems like it would be more of a hindrance. But that's the only change I was thinking about based on what conversations you'd had previously.
That would make sense to me. And I don't know if this is just something you want to, like as the manager that, you're aware of when you're looking at new applications, but we could also think about updating our, the document we put together of requirements when, we're looking for different types of vendors, like what are we looking for? And then we had this is ideal and this is, the minimum in terms of producer only. Might help us kind of think through some of those more technical issues as well.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I don't think it's something that I have to like update with the rules because there's nothing anywhere in the rules as written that has anything about categories beyond just producer or artisan. But I just wanted to run that all by you because I know that was a conversation that had happened before.
Because I know at least from planning and zoning within the city of Ann Arbor, once dispensaries came up, there were a massive flood of applications such they had to cap it because there was crazy strong interest. I don't know if that pressure is still there, but I don't know if you'll feel that or not. So it's going to be, so we don't become just a marijuana market or something like that.
Well, I'll just be clear that, you still can't sell THC based products at market. It's CBD only. And people do have to have lab testing to prove that it is a certain content. I believe it's like less than 0.3%. of content THC, but on top of it, it's incredibly costly. It's much, much easier to become a dispensary than it is to actually be a CBD grower and processor in the state of Michigan. That's just the way that it shakes out. And I think part of that is a lot of people think there's like way more of a CBD market than actually exists, because it is very, very niche still in the state of Michigan. And that's the other thing, is like, to be able to even sell your CBD product to a dispensary, you have to have much more licensing than you even would to sell at the market. So it also, in that sense, it does support smaller scale growers, which is, again, in line with our mission. Yeah, I did a lot of research about this after the state of Michigan released a webinar about this. So I feel like I know the ins and outs now about this in particular.
And Stephanie, I think there's a list somewhere of the initial growers that we had that were interested that weren't part of the market already. And so, it might be.
Yeah, I remember seeing there's like the two, one sells at Dexter, I remember, and I don't remember the name, but I do remember. But we have not really had any interest. I mean, the only person that approached us, they wanted to do like CBD beverages, which, is a complete no-go in the way that the law is written for farmers market sales. So just wanted to be ready, though, if in the event that people, have more of an interest. But at this point, it's been minimal. But that is all that I had on that particular item.
Great. Any other comments or thoughts before we move on with that? All right, seeing none. Move on to item H, new business, non-agenda items. Anyone have any new business?
Maybe this is a good place for me to just do a pitch for an annual report. I totally understand COVID restrictions, but since the market was open for all of 2021, I always found the annual reports really useful in terms of, like I said, with food access and just, what you've been talking about with how you were able to work with the county and the city for mass distribution. Just, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just, here's how the market works with other organizations, providing space. Also, it just seems so important to just show that there hasn't been a rapid decrease in the number of vendors that are there. Once again, to show how the market sort of weathered COVID and keeps moving forward. So I know Stephanie Willett used to do these fancy ones with pictures, and that's probably definitely not feasible this year and not needed, but I always found having the numbers really, really helpful. And I think it's just helpful for making an argument for the city about why the market's so important and the public in general. So.
And that is a really good point too, with the kind of showing essential service that the market does provide within parks within the city. And that if we have data to report to kind of buttress that, I think that does help in general make the case for the market. And it's not that we necessarily are under threat, but I think it is something that's worthwhile to constantly be remaking that case, because I think there is a strong argument to be made, but if we leave that on the table, we're missing out. So I think that would be a valuable thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just used it as well as just like a easy, quick reference for me to look at the food assistance figures and vendor figures, just anything we want to possibly brag about. But having that all together in paper was helpful for like the spokespeople of the market, vendors and us to be able to use when we're talking to others. Yeah, I mean, I think if there's time this winter, I know there's no time, but it could be helpful. I would find it helpful if you had time to put something together. Like, again, it wouldn't need a bunch of pictures. But yeah.
I know when Argus did their report, they didn't do one in 2020, but it was just really wonderful to see their comparisons too, which I don't want to add more work to your plate, but just, Stephanie Willett had put the numbers together for 2029. So we have figures from before COVID, and then if there was a 2021 one, just showing after, because especially the food assistance, I think is so important to talk about the market's contribution to food assistance in the city.
Yeah, well, I'll see what I can do.
I might also include one more, or before we move on, or after we move on, or for that report. Any other comments on that? One more request that I might have is for new business, not something that we do today, but something for the future of, again, I was in a meeting with other chairs of members of city councils like this. And that one of the things too that came up was a general confusion too about the Open Meetings Act. And that for members of this board and members of boards in general, open meetings is a part of what kind of restricts or guides how we do stuff. But I think then other groups, they're saying that they had at some point someone from the city come in and kind of just talk through just a little spiel about kind of what open meetings is and how do we operate within that. Because when I first came onto this board, I didn't know about it for a long period. And then suddenly someone freaked out about it, and then did it shut everything down. And then it was really hard to communicate. It was all just helter-skelter. And so being more rational about that and just saying, here's what it is, here's why it is, and here's how we can work within those frameworks. And that just being straightforward versus kind of having to, it's like learning about sex or something. You can actually do it in a straightforward way. It doesn't have to be. So that I think that's something that we can, I'd request that for this group too, of actually having someone come in who's, say, from the city, just give their little spiel for that for us, to educate us, make sure we're on that playing field, but also making sure we're following within it, but also how do we operate and navigate within that efficiently? Because it can be frustrating. It's like, it's like, we need to solve something, but we can't talk. Well, how do we do that? And that there are ways around that, just making sure that we know. So.
Yeah, and with that said, the city has chosen us as one of the boards and commissions that's actually going to continue to be virtual this year. So that's, I think, part of that. They pretty much chose like city council and other super essential boards and commissions to come back into person, but us, we will continue to be virtual until the end of 2022, as far as what I was told and what I was directed to do by the city of Ann Arbor.
And in that case, in particular, that seems like then making sure we have a mechanism and means for our communication to make sure that we can get the work done that we're here to do. So that I think then it's extra hard when we're doing it online. So I think that making sure that we've got a lot of clarity and a lot of whatever support the city has to offer for us to make that happen within the constraints of what the intention is, I think that would be helpful. I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
I just want to second that, because I remember reading the open meetings stuff that we got when we came commissioners, and felt a little daunted by it. So it would be lovely to sort of get some guidance on that.
Sure. Sounds good. Sure.
All right. Any other new business? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to item J, second public comment.
All right. I'm not seeing any additional attendees that would like to participate. Can maybe give them a few moments additional, but I am not seeing anyone that would like to participate. So. Okay.
Yeah. Seeing none. We will, CTN there. I don't think CTN will have any questions. Okay. Okay. So seeing none, we'll move to item L, adjournment. That's it for today. So it's 6:38 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.